All right, well, great. Let's get going here and start with this webinar. Thank you all for being here. So as we start out today, just a couple of things. First of all, I've muted everyone's microphones. If you have questions, please use the chat function to send us a message. And I'll try to answer questions as we're going along, but we will have some time at the end here to answer any questions you might have. So let's get going. I'm Chris Hanson, co-founder, CEO of the Data Bank. I've been working with nonprofits on individual donor development campaigns since 1985, and really have focused on database and communications technology to help organizations like yours since the early 90s. During the 1990s, I was a managing director of a direct marketing firm in St. Paul called Direct Expressions, where our clients included Minnesota Public Radio and Keeley Radio on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in South Dakota. In 1998, I co-founded the Data Bank for the purpose of providing nonprofit organizations powerful, affordable database and communication software. So I've been working with thousands of nonprofit organizations for almost 40 years now to help them build capacity and serve their communities. A little bit about our company. The Data Bank, we're a small private company located in St. Paul, Minnesota, and we provide an easy-to-use all-in-one cloud-based system to nonprofits, including public radio stations. This is our 25th year in business. In 1998, we released the first commercial web-based fundraising management system called DonorMax. In 2000, we signed up our first public radio station. You see there in the center, Jazz 88 KBEM here in Minneapolis, and they are still a client today. Today, we work with hundreds of nonprofit organizations across the country who use their data bank system for member management, fundraising, program management, communications, volunteer management, and a wide variety of other database and communication needs. By the way, the GBC and our company's name stands for General Benefit Corporation, which is a newer corporate entity type here in Minnesota that is really representative of our social benefit culture as a company. So here's what I'm going to be covering in today's webinar. First, I will briefly go over some of the current challenges stations like yours face. Now, I know you're living this, so it will not be anything new to you, but I want us all to have the same point of reference moving forward in this conversation. Next, I'll focus on some of the main challenges that the data bank is used for by all of our radio station clients and also by most of our nonprofit clients. And that's member donor acquisition and retention and growth. Within this, we're going to take a closer look at communication tools and providing a good member donor experience. And as I mentioned, we'll have time for questions at the end. So let's get going. So, like every public sector today, revenue is one of the greatest challenges for public media. This chart shows that while overall non-federal financial support has grown over the last decade for all public media, since the pandemic, however, there's been a slight drop in public radio revenue, primarily due to a 25% drop in sponsorship revenue between 2019 and 2021. So if you're like many public radio stations, you have been experiencing this as well. Now, while this chart shows there have been gains in major giving and membership for public radio over this period, a deeper look at the data shows that there are some challenging trends. For example, while membership on this chart is seeing a 9% growth in revenue, most of this growth has come from increased giving from existing members. New member revenue over this time has decreased by almost 10%. When this is combined with significant reductions in spending on fundraising and membership development in the sector, along with a 25% drop in sponsorship revenue, it obviously creates a very challenging economic environment for public radio. And unfortunately, the situation is even more challenging for small stations. As this chart shows, the only area of revenue growth for small stations in the last 3 years has been membership. And as I mentioned before, this growth is primarily from increased giving from existing members, not from new members. And when you add up total revenue from all sources, there is an overall decline in revenue for small public radio stations. Now, obviously, I don't have to tell all of you about what's happening because you're living it. And your experience could be really different from what this analysis shows. And I don't want this to seem like a doom and gloom message. My experience in fundraising over the last 40 years is, like most markets, fundraising is cyclical. There's up and downs. My goal today here is to show you some possible ways to help you sustain and hopefully grow during this overall downturn in the sector. Now I want to turn our attention to the focus of this webinar, is how you, as a public radio station, can use technology to help you build capacity. In doing that, I'm going to focus on 3 areas: new member acquisition, member retention, and member growth. And as I mentioned, I'm specifically going to talk about the role of communications and providing a good member experience in all 3 of these areas. So someone's launched and managed hundreds of donor acquisition campaigns over the years. The question I always have is, how do you find new donors in an increasingly challenging times? Now, 30 years ago, we could launch an organization and a direct mail acquisition campaign and actually make money. In fact, we did this in the late 1980s for Keeley Radio, where we were able to acquire donors who could not even possibly listen to the station because we had a message and a cause they could support. Now, today, direct mail is costly and response rates continue to decline, as well as the possible universe of direct mail donors continues to shrink. Now, of course, radio, you have the ability to directly speak to listeners either through over the air or streaming broadcasts. This audience, of course, is your best opportunity for new members, but how do you convert them from listening to giving? Well, from my experience, the key is engagement. And how do you engage today's audience to take action and choose to give? Communications is really the answer, is the key here. As we all know, as we all experience, we're all flooded with media and communications from multiple sources all the time. Recent estimates that I've seen have placed this at somewhere between 5,000 to 10,000 messages we all are bombarded with on a daily basis. So with such a tsunami of messaging, how in the world can your tiny blip stand out? Well, these 4 bullet points will not guarantee your message is going to be heard. It'll go a long way to making it happen. We're going to look at each of these in a little more detail. So first, your communications must be multi-channel, it must be personal, must be driven by the recipient, and it must be interactive. Let's take a look at the first one here. These charts show some dramatic differences in open rates, click-through, and conversion rates via text messaging, email, and the internet. And what's really significant here is you can see, well, email is still primary channel for communications today. What we've been seeing over the last certainly 10 years is that, while open rates have remained pretty steady, click-through rates and conversion rates, so people clicking on those emails to take action and then actually completing the action, have declined significantly. And part of the reason is because it's estimated over 50% of all the emails you receive every day are spam. What we also see in these charts is, while email open and click-through rates have declined, SMS text messaging continues to increase. So one of the things I want to point out about this is their different channels operate well for different types of messaging. So for instance, if you're making a pledge appeal online, how are your listeners going to respond? And do you have the tools in place to adequately engage that response? Traditionally in public radio, we'd have people maybe make a phone call into a phone bank. But oftentimes people can't do that. So are there other channels you can use to help those people to take action? We also know that not only do you need to have multiple channels of communication to acquire, retain, and grow your membership base, but those messages also need to be mobile focused, because we know today that most people visiting your website, most people reading your emails, most people visiting your social media presence are doing so on their cell phones. And of course, people are doing voice and text messaging on their cell phones. So whatever channel you're using to communicate, we know that that communication needs to be responsive to being read and taken action on somebody's cell phone. So here we're going to take a look in the engine of the data bank a bit and look at some of the tools that we have within the data bank to help you send communications out via multiple channels and also send communications that are mobile responsive. Here we see the databank's PowerMail tool, which gives you the ability to create engaging mobile responsive messages that can be sent as emails. Here we see the drag and drop editor tool, which if you use some of the more popular email tools out there, like Constant Contact or MailChimp, the same type of editor tool that is in those as well. Now, the nice thing about PowerMail is while you can create very engaging email communications, when you're ready to publish or send that communications, as we see here on the publish page, you can also, of course, send test messages yourself, always a good thing to do. But down here, you can see with a click of the button, you can publish this message to a web page. So you can start to create a web archive of communications that you're sending out to your members and your supporters. And then also, with a click of a button, you can publish those messages to your social media properties. So here with one tool, you're able to create an email, publish that message to the website, and also publish to your social media channels. So you have multiple channels being able to be sent just through this one tool. So now once you have communications going, how do you personalize your message to be more engaging for the recipient? Well, the first step is to have a good understanding of who your contacts are, which is where the databank's database capabilities come into play. Here we see a typical donor or member record, and I use those terms kind of synonymously within the data bank. And as we see at the top part of this section, all the donors' demographic contact information is stored, as well as all of their transaction history. So their membership histories, for instance, or how did they come into the system as a member? Or if you're selling merchandise on your website, those would be tracked within here as well. All of this information is stored within the record. And in addition, personalized data such as self-identified interests, we can see over here that you've set up on secure online forms to collect this information is also available. Individuals can also self-select to subscribe to different publications. They can decide whether they wish to receive communications via email, via text, via direct mail, phone calls. All of this personal information is stored and used within the system to help you send more responsive communications to your supporters. And we can see that the more personalized messages become, and if they're sent in the fashion that the recipient receives, you're going to see better response, click-through, and activation rates. In addition, as I mentioned, because the PowerMail tool is fully integrated in the system, you can use that information to personalize your communications as we see here. So within the message itself, in the subject line, you can personalize it with people's names or any of that personal information that's in there. You can include information as far as their giving history within that communications to really make it, very personalized message. Now, in addition to Power Mail, which is a really powerful tool, if we look on the left-hand side here of the menu, you're going to see some of the other communication tools that are available within the data bank I want to talk about briefly. So with email communications, there are a couple things that I recommend you look at doing with your email communications. The first of those is to do some testing on your emails as far as what's going to have the highest open and conversion rates in emails, especially if you're sending out, large solicitation lists. You want to test that subject line sometimes to see which is going to get the better response rate before you send out to the entire list. Well, there's an A/B test function within the data bank that allows you to do that. Second tool that can be very powerful is to set up automations in your communications. So this is where you can set up a series of email communications to go out to people based on triggers. Maybe they've come to your website and filled out a membership form. Maybe they've subscribed to a newsletter publication you're sending out. Whatever trigger you want to set up within that, then you can set up a series of emails that will be sent to that recipient on a pre-scheduled basis. This makes sure that you have, ongoing engagement with the person and give them many ways that they can respond. Now, in addition to Power Mail, you'll see here SMS announcements, and I talked just a bit before about the importance of adding text messaging into communication channels. The data bank has a built-in SMS bulk announcement function, allows you to send text messages in bulk out to people that have subscribed to that function. And if we go down here a little bit more, we have a mail merge function. So if you are doing direct mail out to your donors, maybe for thank you letters or maybe a solicitation out to members, there's a built-in mail merge function here where you can create those merges and output that as a Word file to print and send out locally. And then down at the bottom here, and I want to talk about this a little bit, is about 10 years ago, we did integration with this tool called Call Hub. And let's take a look at that here, because this is going to give you some additional communication tools that is really going to help you acquire and retain those members. So as I mentioned before, communication needs to be interactive. And one of the nice things about text messaging is that you can set up interactive automated communications with people that really engages them. And that can be done through this Call Hub tool. Here we are looking at the Call Hub interface itself. I want to point out a couple other tools that Call Hub has that you might be interested in. First is they have a virtual call center. So if you are doing phone banking, if you are recruiting volunteers to staff phones while you're doing your pledge drives, those types of things, you can use this virtual call center function to have those volunteers at the ready to receive calls coming in. So it can be used for incoming, can also be used for outgoing calls. It's a very cool tool. They also have a voice broadcast function where you can record a message and then select recipients to receive that voice message, and it'll call all of those numbers on the recipient list that you select, and they will receive that voice message. Another great tool for calls to action, for instance. Now, down at the bottom here, they have three different sort of text functions. So they can do text broadcasts, as I mentioned. We have that built into the data bank. The one I really want to talk about now is this text to join function. So with Call Up and Text to Join, you can create an easy way for someone to sign up to be a supporter through a series of interactive text messages. Once the person triggers the interaction by texting a keyword to your designated number, the system will then automatically engage them in a series of text messages that you've predetermined. This is a great tool for gathering personal contact information to be used in future communications. Can also be used for quick surveys to get listener responses to programming or other topics. Links to member sign-up pages can be included in those text messages. So if you're doing an on-air pledge drive or member drive, you've all seen these types of things where you ask someone to text a keyword to a number. You can broadcast it, of course, out through your radio station, through the radio program. Then once somebody texts that, they can be engaged in this series of conversations. For instance, in this one, it's asking for people to say, what's your first name, your last name, asking for email. So it's a great way to collect some personal information. And now, nice thing about this is because it's integrated with the data bank, all of this information is automatically input into the database and made available to you as soon as the recipient inputs the information. Now, I want to say, once you've engaged people via text signup, it's really then easy to continue communicating with them through that same channel. And remember, the percentage of population responsive to email, phone, and direct mail continues to decline, while text messaging continues to increase. And I can't stress this enough, text messaging today is not an option in your communication channel. It's a necessity if you want to acquire and grow your member base. So as important as being able to create and send effective communications across multiple channels is being able to track how those communications are working. With all of those touch points tracked in the data bank, you can easily see and report in communications across all channels. I can't tell you, as someone who has done direct marketing for most of my life, how important it is to have good reporting tools to see how your various communications are going. And that's obviously going to help you to change things as you move forward, to figure out what are the best channels, what are the best ways to get your members to take action. So now I've talked about the importance of communications in your member acquisition, retention, and growth strategies. I want to spend the last few minutes talking about a few ways to create a good member experience to help retain and grow your existing member giving. Since we've been seeing in the sector that most increased member revenue has come from existing members, having ways to really engage your existing members to get them to be more engaged in supporting you is critically important to sustaining and growing your revenue. Now, one of the areas that some of our member-based organizations have struggled with is how do you manage gift premiums? Now, your station might not do premiums. Most of the stations that we work do offer premiums, and they have had challenges on how to manage those premiums effectively, so it doesn't take a lot of staff time. And so what we did is built a function within the databank's form tool, which you see here, that makes it very easy for them to input premium gifts and then assign those premium gifts to different levels of giving. So then once somebody comes to a member sign up form, this is what they're going to see. So this is an example of a member sign up form from my MY radio. You can see if we scroll down here, well, it gives the different giving options and those types of things, and a place to enter name and address. Now, if we click one of these boxes, all of a sudden you'll see the premiums that are available for that giving amount are displayed on the form. If we change that, see, it's dynamic. It'll automatically update with the premium amounts that are available for that form. Then the member can just select which premium they want, fill out the rest of the form, submit it. And then on your side, you're going to see that membership gift, of course. You're going to see which premium they selected, so it makes it very easier for fulfillment. Of that member premium. All right, so that's one of the ways that we have helped some of our stations create some more efficiencies on the back end of their pledge drives. The next one I want to talk about, which is an area where we've seen, a number of our member-based organizations turn to over the last probably 10 years, is that's creating a really unique online member experience for their supporters. And that's often done through what we call member portals. And let's go take a look at this one that we developed for one of our clients. Okay, let's go over here. All right. So this is a portal we built for the Mississippi Alliance of Nonprofits and Philanthropy. They have both individual and organizational members, and depending on the membership level, type of membership, those members receive some different benefits. And one of the nice things that we've been able to do here is to create member-specific content that's available to people, again, based on their membership levels. So as we're logged in here, and this is a test account that we're logged into, you can see that there is a number of publications that are available to this member that would not be available to the general public necessarily, plus a bunch of other premiums, multimedias, research tools, other things that are available to this member through the portal. One thing we're doing with one of our public radio stations right now is there's one of their benefits for a certain membership tier. They want to make available high definition streaming of their broadcasts. And so that would be something that we would put behind this member portal as well, where once the member logs in, they're able to see the high definition streaming options to see those broadcasts. The other thing that is nice in these membership portals is that you can provide the member themselves with some of their historical aspects of their relationship with your station. So in this case, they can view their memberships. They can view contact information that has been input into the system. They can actually edit this contact information as well through the portal. Makes it very nice for your members to manage their own information in the database. Gives them a sense of ownership, which is important. Also, we can see historical data such as different transactions that have happened within the system. So they could see their own membership accounts and when are they coming due. Now, some of our clients have things like trainings and those types of things. And so we can make that kind of information as available as well here. So these member portals, what we've been able to find, certainly over the last 5 years, is that if they're set up correctly, they provide the right kind of benefit to members, they can be very successful at not just retaining your members, but actually increasing their membership. So maybe, for instance, you offer some member-specific merchandise or something that's only available through this portal. Well, let's jump back here. So I think that's enough for me now. I hope you've gleaned some insights today. And if you're looking for some technology to help you build membership, we'd love to talk to you. I'm also happy now to answer any questions you might have. So thank you very much. Any questions?